80%. That's quite a number, isn't it? 80% of people apparently dissatisfied with their jobs. That's according to the Deloitte Shift Index.
It is startling. Really makes you wonder, what's going on inside our workplaces.
Exactly. Why are so many people unhappy? And maybe more importantly, what can actually be done about it? Why do some teams really click and, well, others just don't?
It's a fundamental question, and that's really the territory Simon Sinek explores in his book, Leaders Eat Last, Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't.
Right. And that's what we're digging into today. We're going to pull out the key ideas, the core concepts from Sinek's work to understand what makes for good teamwork, good leadership.
Yeah, consider this our deep dive. Sinek covers a lot of ground history, business examples, even biology.
He really does. And our mission here, for you listening, is to kind of distill that. We want to give you the main takeaways, those aha moments from Leaders Eat Last, without you having to read the whole thing right now, just the insights you can use.
Sounds good. So where should we start? Maybe with his central metaphor, the circle of safety.
Yes, let's do that. The circle of safety. Explain that a bit.
Well, the basic idea is when people inside an organization feel safe, protected by their leaders and colleagues, they stop focusing inward. They stop worrying about protecting themselves from each other.
Okay, so they feel secure within the group.
Exactly. And that security, that trust, means they can then turn their attention and energy outwards, towards the competition, towards the challenges, towards innovation.
It taps into something pretty fundamental, doesn't it? Like our basic human need to belong, to feel safe within the tribe.
Precisely. Think way back. Homo sapiens survived because we learned to cooperate, to trust each other within the group, to face external dangers. That wiring is still there.
So if an organization instead creates internal threats, office politics, fear of layoffs, constant internal competition,
then people naturally become defensive. They spend their energy protecting themselves, hoarding resources or information. It's incredibly inefficient, like that tribe spending all its time arguing instead of hunting.
right, and that leads directly into the role of the leader, doesn't it? Creating that safety.
It absolutely does, and this is where the title comes in, Leaders Eat Last. Sinek uses the Marine Corps tradition as a powerful example. Officers eat only after their troops have eaten.
It's more than just symbolic, though.
Well, much more. It embodies the core idea. Leadership means putting the needs and well-being of your people before your own. It's about sacrifice. True leadership has a cost.
Sinek tells that story about the pilot, Johnny Bravo, in Afghanistan. That really drives it home.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. So the special ops team, they'd captured a high-value target, mission success, but then they get pinned down. Heavy fire, weather closing in fast clouds, storms.
Terrible situation.
Yeah.
And Johnny Bravo, the pilot overhead, he wasn't actually ordered to do anything particularly risky at that point, was he?
No, the safe play was to wait. But he could sense how bad it was for the guys on the ground. He felt that responsibility.
So what did he do?
He made the call to attempt a wetter letdown, basically fly down through the storm, pretty much blind, relying on old Soviet maps just to see what was happening, to be there for them.
Wow. Risking his own life, essentially.
Completely. His focus wasn't on his own safety, it was on theirs. He even said something like, there are worse things than dying, like failing your team or going home when they don't.
That's incredible commitment. That's eating last, in the most extreme sense, putting his team's survival above his own.
Exactly. It's leadership born from empathy, from that profound sense of responsibility. And Sinek argues that this kind of selflessness is, well, essential for genuine leadership.
And that kind of leadership, when people see it, it builds incredible trust, right? Which brings us to Bob Chapman at Barry-Wehmiller.
Ah, yes, Chapman. A fantastic example. He took over this manufacturing company and just fundamentally changed its culture.
So?
He shifted it away from just being about numbers and profit towards genuinely caring for the employees, treating them basically like family.
And he made concrete changes, didn't he? Like getting rid of time clocks.
Yeah, things like that. Time clocks, payphones for personal calls. Symbols of distrust, really. He opened up communication, extended trust first.
And the response from the employees was pretty amazing, that story about the vacation days.
Oh, right. An employee had a personal crisis, needed more time off than they had, and spontaneously other employees just started donating their own paid vacation days to help this person out.
That's not something policy dictates. That comes from a real sense of community, of mutual support.
Absolutely. It showed the culture Chapman had built. He truly believed people were fundamentally good and saw his role as a leader almost like a parent responsible for his sons and daughters, the employees. That empathy fostered huge loyalty.
It really highlights that when people feel genuinely cared for, they give back more. They're more engaged, more motivated. It creates that psychological safety.
And, Sinek argues there's a biological underpinning to all this. He talks about the chemicals of cooperation.
Okay, let's get into the science bit. What chemicals are we talking about?
Well, first you've got endorphins. They mask physical pain. Think of them like the natural high you get after strenuous effort, like our ancestors collaborating on a hunt. They bond us through shared struggle and accomplishment.
Right. The runner's high, but for teamwork.
Sort of, yeah. Then there's dopamine. That's the reward chemical. We get a hit when we find something we're looking for, achieve a goal, check something off the list. Very satisfying, drives us forward.
But dopamine can be addictive, can't it? Especially in workplaces focused only on hitting targets.
That's the danger, Sinek points out. If it's all about making the numbers, you can get addicted to those dopamine hits, focusing on individual achievement, sometimes at the expense of the team, like gambling.
Okay. What else?
Then there's serotonin. This is linked to feelings of pride, status, public recognition. It reinforces relationships. We feel it when we feel respected or when someone we care about or our leader achieves something. It encourages looking out for others.
So it's about the social bonds, feeling valued within the group.
Exactly. It makes us feel responsible for people, not just abstract targets. It's why a team win feels different, better than just hitting a personal metric alone.
And the big one for trust, oxytocin.
Oxytocin, yeah. Often called the love or trust chemical. It's fundamental for social bonding, empathy, generosity, feeling like you belong. It's the glue of the circle of safety.
And you don't just get it from receiving kindness, right?
No, that's what's fascinating. Just witnessing an act of generosity or self-sacrifice can release oxytocin in observers. It makes us want to be more generous ourselves. It creates this ripple effect of goodwill.
Wow. Okay, so endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, those are the good chemicals for cooperation.
Yeah.
What about the flip side?
That would be cortisol, the stress hormone. It's released when we feel threatened, anxious, unsafe, whether the threat is a looming deadline, fear of layoffs, or a hostile boss.
And constant stress, chronic cortisol. That's
Yeah.
bad news for teamwork.
Really bad. Chronically high cortisol actually inhibits the release of oxytocin. It makes us more selfish, more focused on self-preservation. It erodes trust, breaks down the circle of safety from the inside. It basically puts our body in survival mode, even if the threat is just office politics.
So our own biology is either helping build that circle of safety or actively tearing it down, depending on the environment created by leadership.
That's the argument. It's a really compelling way to look at why some workplace cultures feel so good and others feel so toxic.
Okay, that makes sense. And Sinek also talks about another danger, something about abstraction.
Yes, the dangers of abstraction. How distance, physical, emotional, hierarchical, can erode empathy and lead to poor, sometimes unethical decisions.
Managing the abstraction, he calls it. So the further away we are from the impact of our decisions, the harder it is to connect with the human consequences.
Exactly. He uses that chilling quote attributed to Stalin. The death of one man is a tragedy. The death of a million is a statistic. Numbers become abstract, dehumanized.
He links this to the Milgram experiment too, doesn't he?
Right. People were more willing to inflict what they thought were painful electric shocks when they couldn't see or hear the person they were hurting. Distance made it easier to compartmentalize, to follow orders without feeling the impact.
And the parallel to the corporate world is pretty clear. Making decisions based purely on spreadsheets, without seeing the faces or hearing the stories of the people affected.
It becomes much easier to make decisions that might devastate lives, like mass layoffs, because you're detached from the human reality. It's just numbers on a page.
He even touches on how online interactions, while useful, often lack the depth needed for real trust building compared to face-to-face contact.
Yeah, he mentions early bloggers finding huge value in finally meeting in person. And this connects to Dunbar's number.
The idea that we can only really maintain about 150 meaningful relationships.
Roughly, yes. And Sinek highlights companies like W.L. Gore and Associates, the makers of Gore-Tex. They deliberately keep their facilities under a certain size, around 150 people.
Why? Just for efficiency.
Not just that. It's specifically to maintain that human scale where people actually know each other, can build real relationships, foster that trust and cooperation naturally. It's harder to be abstract when you know everyone personally.
So staying small, or at least organizing into smaller units, helps fight that abstraction and strengthens the circle of safety.
That's the idea. And building on that, Sinek stresses the need for a clear purpose, strong values, something bigger than just profit to guide people.
A compelling vision. Not just vague mission statements, but something specific, something inspiring.
Exactly. A cause people can believe in, something that gives the work meaning. This higher authority, a noble purpose, a moral code acts as a guide.
Like those people in the Milgram experiment who refused to continue, despite the pressure from the authority figure.
Precisely. They were guided by their own internal sense of right and wrong, which was stronger than the external command. A strong organizational purpose can serve a similar function.
So it comes back again to focusing on people, on purpose, not just numbers. Sinek argues that focusing on caring for people is the route to better long-term results anyway.
Right. It's not a trade-off. He believes it's a virtuous cycle. But of course, we see plenty of examples where that cycle gets broken, where trust is eroded.
He provides some case studies of that, doesn't he? The negative examples.
He does. There's the Goldman Sachs editorial by Greg Smith talking about a culture shift where he felt profit became prioritized over client interests.
And the issues at Citi where hoarding information apparently contributed to big losses.
Yeah, a lack of internal trust and collaboration leading to bad outcomes. He contrasts that with, say, 3M, known for its culture of sharing and innovation.
And the leadership of Stan O'Neill at Merrill Lynch is often cited as an example of self-interest potentially contributing to a company's problems.
Definitely a cautionary tale in the book. But Sinek balances it. He points back to the positive examples, Barry-Wehmiller, Costco under Jim Sinegal, showing that a people-first, high-integrity approach can lead to incredible, sustainable success.
So it's not just theory. There are real-world examples of this working and examples of what happens when it fails.
Absolutely. The contrast is pretty stark. And he gives more examples of leadership in action, too.
Like Captain David Marquet on the USS Santa Fe.
Yes, that's a great one. Marquet took command of a poorly performing submarine and turned it around. But how? Not by being more commanding.
He did the opposite, right? He pushed control down the chain of command, empowered his crew.
Exactly. He shifted from command and control to intent and empower. He fostered competence and clarity so his crew could make decisions. The result: the Santa Fe became the best-rated sub in the fleet. It showed trust and empowerment unleashed potential.
Then there's the foxhole test. What's that?
It's basically asking, in a crisis, in a truly high-stakes situation, who would you implicitly trust beside you? It boils down to integrity.
He mentions Ron Paul, the politician. Not necessarily about agreeing with his politics.
No, the point Sinek makes, quoting someone else I believe, is that even people who disagreed with Paul might trust him in that foxhole because of his perceived consistency and integrity over many years. It's about character.
And Ralph Lauren's handling of that bribery case in Argentina.
Another example of prioritizing long-term trust. Instead of hiding it, they owned up, reported it, took the financial hit. They chose integrity over short-term damage control.
Which contrasts sharply with something like Bank of America trying to add that debit card fee, then backtracking when customers revolted.
Right. That showed a disconnect, a perceived breach of trust, and the public pushed back hard. Trust, once broken, is really hard to regain.
These examples really drive home how central trust is, not just inside a company, but with customers and the public too.
Definitely. And Sinek even extends this idea to society more broadly. He talks about the U.S. Congress, for example.
The decline in cross-party friendships.
Yeah, and how the focus seems to have shifted from cooperation and finding common ground to simply winning, beating the other side.
Which leads to gridlock, low approval ratings, a breakdown in the functioning of the institution because the personal relationships, the basic trust, isn't there.
It really highlights the cost when human connection is lost, even among political adversaries. But he does offer a counterexample.
The friendship between Bob Goodlatte, a Republican, and Stephanie Herseth-Sandlin, a Democrat.
Exactly. Despite their political differences, they built a genuine friendship which allowed them to actually work together effectively on some issues. It shows it is possible. It starts with seeing the human being on the other side.
Like William Urey's work on negotiation emphasizes humanize your opponent. Listen, it's fundamental.
It really is. Now, Sinek also touches on some generational challenges related to all this.
The me generation, baby boomers, and the distracted generation, millennials, Gen Y.
Right. He suggests, based on various sources, that maybe the focus on individual achievement for boomers and the rise of digital abstraction and instant gratification for younger generations might pose challenges to building those deep, oxytocin-fueled social bonds.
Interesting. He mentions things like rising suicide rates among boomers and maybe younger generations relying more on virtual validation.
Yeah, potential signs of disconnection. And the constant dopamine hits from technology, likes, notifications can be addictive and maybe confuse us into thinking online interactions are the same as deep, trusting relationships. It's easier to send a supportive emoji than to actually show up for someone.
So the risk is that these modern trends might inadvertently weaken the very connections needed for strong circles of safety, both at work and in life.
That's the concern he raises. Building real trust, strong cultures, resilient teams, it takes effort, real connection, not just clicks and texts.
He uses the analogy of Alcoholics Anonymous, doesn't he?
Yes, AA works because of the real love human connection, the shared vulnerability, the mutual support in person. That's hard to replicate digitally.
And those strong bonds that oxytocin boost, it's not just about feeling good. It actually helps us live longer, be more resilient.
Absolutely. There's science behind that too. So it all circles back. Leaders need to consciously, actively create and protect that circle of safety. It's vital for well-being and performance.
Okay, so if we were to boil down the core message of leaders eat last, what's the key takeaway?
I think it's this. Organizations thrive, truly thrive, when their leaders make the safety and well-being of their people their top priority. That focus builds trust, enables cooperation, creates a shared purpose. And all of that leads to better results, more innovation, and just, well, a better place to work.
And for everyone listening, the invitation is really to reflect on your own situation, right? How strong is the circle of safety where you work or in the teams you're part of?
Exactly. And think about what role you can play, whatever your position, in strengthening it. Even small acts of looking out for colleagues, extending trust, showing empathy, they make a difference.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something provocative to consider.
Yeah. In this world that's so focused on speed, short-term results, digital everything,
Yeah.
are we maybe forgetting something really fundamental about being human? That need for real connection, for feeling genuinely safe and protected within our groups, especially at work where we spend so much time.
And if we are forgetting that or letting it slide, what are the long-term consequences going to be for us as individuals and for our organizations?
It's definitely something worth thinking about.